What if the most feared criminal empire in modern history wasn't just waging war on its rivals, but was being ripped apart from the inside? The Kinahan Cartel, a name that strikes fear across continents, is now at the center of a storm fueled by betrayal, greed, and deadly power struggles, and the consequences could shatter everything they've built. The Kinahan Cartel has long been synonymous with power and fear, its influence stretching far beyond Ireland's borders. Built on a foundation of drugs, violence, and an ironclad code of loyalty, the cartel has cemented its place as one of the most notorious criminal empires in modern history. But no empire is immune to decay. Beneath their carefully constructed facade lies a festering storm, one fueled by greed and betrayal. As rivals circle like vultures and internal power struggles intensify, the cartel teeters on the edge of implosion, threatening to bring down everything they've built. At the heart of the Kinahan cartel's dark empire lies its enigmatic founder, Christy Kinahan, the man the world knows as the Dapper Don. Born into modest beginnings, Kinahan's journey into infamy began with small-time scams and street-level crimes. But he wasn't content to remain in the shadows of petty criminality. With a sharp mind, a flair for manipulation, and an unrelenting ambition, Kinahan climbed the ranks of the criminal underworld, transforming himself into one of Europe's most powerful and feared drug lords. Kinahan's vision was bold. He didn't just want power in Dublin or even Ireland. He wanted a transnational empire that controlled the flow of drugs across Europe. Through connections forged in the seedy corridors of prisons and the high-stakes world of international crime, he orchestrated a network that spanned continents. The Kinahan Cartel became a name that struck terror into rivals and dominated the global drug trade, with operations stretching from South America to Spain, the Netherlands, and beyond. What set Christie apart wasn't just his business acumen. It was his ability to enforce his rule with calculated ruthlessness. For every loyal lieutenant in his ranks, there were countless others who were silenced for crossing him. Lives were expendable, and bloodshed was the currency of control. The cartel's reputation grew not just through its wealth, but through its capacity for brutality, a clear message to anyone who dared to oppose them. But no empire, no matter how carefully constructed, is indestructible. Beneath the glittering illusion of invincibility, cracks began to form. Power breeds greed, and loyalty is never absolute in a world where violence is the only law. While Christy Kinahan laid the foundation of his empire in blood, those cracks would soon widen into chasms, threatening to consume everything he had built. The seeds of betrayal were already sown, and the collapse of trust would be far more devastating than any external threat. Beneath the Kinahan cartel's imposing exterior, a storm was brewing, one that would pit its own members against each other. At the heart of this chaos was betrayal, the kind that festers in the shadows and tears apart even the strongest of alliances. What began as a whisper of discontent among key players quickly erupted into an all-out war for dominance. The once unified cartel fractured into factions, each vying for control, leaving a trail of blood and destruction in their wake. Loyalties dissolved as greed and ambition consumed the ranks. The cartel's internal war was fueled by power struggles that escalated into deadly confrontations, with hitmen targeting former allies as easily as they did enemies. No one was safe. This wasn't just a fight over territory or money, it was a brutal battle for survival, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. As if the cartel's internal strife wasn't enough, the feud with their bitter rivals, the Hutch gang, reignited with a vengeance. This war of titans, sparked by a betrayal years earlier, became even more savage, drawing more bodies into the crossfire. The Hutch-Kinahan feud, already a defining chapter in Ireland's criminal history, now became a catalyst for chaos within the cartel itself. The Kinahan cartel's internal war was unlike anything the underworld had seen before. It was a perfect storm of betrayal, ambition, and violence, a storm that threatened to destroy everything the cartel had built. But who would emerge victorious, and at what cost? As the bloodshed deepened, the cartel's future hung by a thread, with every betrayal pushing them closer to the brink of destruction. February in 2016 marked a day that would send shockwaves across Ireland and beyond. The Regency Hotel in Dublin, an unassuming venue hosting a boxing weigh-in, became the scene of one of the most audacious and brutal attacks in modern Irish criminal history. In broad daylight, chaos erupted as a group of heavily armed gunmen disguised as police officers stormed the event, their target clear and their intentions deadly. Panic ensued as attendees scrambled for safety, the echo of gunfire filling the air. When the dust settled, one high-profile Kinahan Cartel member, David Barron, lay dead. The attackers vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving behind a bloody scene and countless unanswered questions. This wasn't a random act of violence, it was a calculated strike designed to send a chilling message. The audacity of the attack stunned even seasoned law enforcement, who had ordered such a brazen hit, and what did they stand to gain? Suspicion quickly fell on the Hutch gang, longtime rivals of the Kinahan Cartel. The Regency attack was seen as retaliation in a feud that had already claimed multiple lives, a feud that had now escalated to an unprecedented level of brutality. But the attack wasn't just about rivalry, it revealed cracks within the cartel itself. The assassination of David Barron was more than a blow to the cartel's operations, it was a direct challenge to their dominance. As investigators pieced together the events of that fateful day, one thing became clear. This was no ordinary gangland hit. It was the opening act in a deadly game of power and vengeance that would leave Dublin in the grip of terror. Behind the scenes, a secret war was unfolding this time, not on the streets, but in the shadows where law enforcement worked tirelessly to dismantle the Kinahan cartel's iron grip. As the violence escalated and bodies continued to fall, investigators turned to one of their most powerful tools, wiretaps. Through painstaking surveillance, they began to uncover the chilling underbelly of the cartel's operations. Recorded conversations painted a grim picture of a world where life and death were commodities and loyalty could be bought or destroyed for the right price. These wiretaps revealed how hitmen were coldly recruited, often desperate young men lured by promises of quick money, only to find themselves expendable pawns in a deadly game. Payments were arranged in coded messages, with killers often receiving just enough cash to disappear after their gruesome work was done. The recordings also captured the cartel's leaders as they plotted revenge, discussed rivals, and issued orders with terrifying precision. Every word dripped with paranoia, a constant fear that betrayal could come from anyone at any time. For law enforcement, these recordings were more than just evidence. They were a rare and invaluable glimpse into a criminal empire built on violence, fear, and mistrust. But as investigators listened in, the question loomed. Would these whispers from the shadows be enough to bring down a cartel as ruthless and powerful as the Kinahans? Or would the voices of the dead drown them out before justice could be served? A new spotlight was cast on the Kinahan Cartel with the release of Kinahan Assassins, a chilling exposé written by investigative journalists Stephen Breen and John Hand. The book dives deep into the cartel's darkest corners, revealing the blood-soaked realities of their operations. For years, the Kinahans operated in a world shrouded by fear and silence, but this exposé has shattered that illusion, exposing their inner workings to the public like never before. The pages of Kinahan Assassins detail the cartel's ruthless strategies. From recruiting assassins to orchestrating cold-blooded executions, no tactic was off limits. With first-hand accounts, wiretap evidence, and insights from law enforcement, the book paints a chilling picture of how the Kinahan cartel maintained their iron grip on power through violence and intimidation. One of the most harrowing revelations is the sheer level of control the cartel exerts over its hitmen. These killers are treated as disposable tools, given just enough to survive before being cast aside or silenced. Breen and Hand also delve into the psychological warfare waged by the Kinahans, targeting not just rivals, but their families, friends, and associates, a deliberate strategy to ensure no one dared to cross them. The release of this book has not only reignited public interest in the cartel's brutal reign, but has also sent ripples through the criminal underworld. For the Kinahans, this expose isn't just an inconvenient truth. It's a direct challenge to their power, threatening to unravel the fearsome reputation they've spent decades cultivating. As readers consume these revelations, the question lingers: could the truths within these pages be the catalyst that finally brings the Kinahan cartel to its knees? Behind every headline about the Kinahan cartel's violence lies the story of unimaginable grief. Interviews with the families of victims lay bare the human cost of the cartel's ruthless actions, painting a heartbreaking picture of lives shattered forever. These families aren't just collateral damage, they are the silent witnesses to a war they never asked to be part of. Mothers speak of the devastating phone calls that changed their lives in an instant. Fathers recount sleepless nights spent reliving the moment they lost their children, and siblings carry the heavy burden of unanswered questions. They describe a chilling pattern: loved ones who were dragged into the orbit of the cartel, often unknowingly, only to become pawns or targets in a game of power and revenge. For these families, the pursuit of justice feels like chasing a shadow. Many fear that speaking out will make them targets themselves, silenced by the very cartel responsible for their pain. The trauma doesn't end with loss, it's compounded by the knowledge that the perpetrators continue to walk free, their power seemingly untouched by the law. These stories are a stark reminder of what's at stake in the fight against the Kinahan cartel. It's not just about dismantling a criminal empire, it's about reclaiming a sense of safety, dignity, and peace for the families who have lost everything. Yet for many, closure remains an elusive dream, and the scars left behind by the cartel's violence will never fully heal. In the dark world of the Kinahan cartel, hitmen are the lifeblood of their operations, and their recruitment process is as cold as it is calculated. Promises of quick money, power, and respect are dangled like bait in front of desperate young men, many of whom see no other way out of poverty or hardship. The allure is undeniable, a fast track to a life of luxury and status. But beneath the promises lies a brutal truth, one that most recruits only realize when it's too late. The cartel targets those who are vulnerable, individuals with few opportunities, a history of criminal activity, or a desperate need for belonging. These young men are groomed to believe they're stepping into a world of power where loyalty is rewarded and betrayal is punished swiftly. For the Kinahans, it's a win-win. They gain a disposable soldier willing to kill on command, while the recruit becomes entangled in a web of violence they can never escape. Training is minimal. Hitmen are valued for their willingness to act, not their expertise. Their missions are simple and ruthless: eliminate targets and send a message. But the price of this loyalty is often their own lives. Those who fail, hesitate, or become a liability are discarded without hesitation, their usefulness having run its course. The grim reality of this recruitment process is a chilling reflection of the cartel's ethos. No one is indispensable and everyone is expendable. These assassins, promised the world, are often left with nothing but a deadly legacy and the knowledge that they too are replaceable in an empire built on blood and betrayal. No empire can grow without facing enemies, and for the Kinahan cartel, those enemies didn't just come from outside. As their criminal empire expanded across borders, so too did the greed and ambition of those within their own ranks. Once bound by fear and loyalty, key players in the cartel began to see opportunities to carve out their own power, and the cracks in the organization turned into deep fractures. At first, the power struggles were subtle whispers in the shadows, deals made behind closed doors. But ambition doesn't stay hidden for long, and when rival factions within the cartel began clashing over territory, money, and influence, those tensions exploded into deadly feuds. Old alliances dissolved, and former brothers in arms became enemies overnight. The Kinahan leadership found itself facing betrayal from within its own trusted circle. Lieutenants sought to outmaneuver each other, forming secret factions to gain leverage in an already dangerous game. These betrayals were met with swift and ruthless retaliation, as anyone suspected of disloyalty quickly became a target. What once made the Kinahan cartel strong, their unity, discipline, and ability to instill fear, was now being eroded from the inside. Every new feud, every act of violence weakened the empire's foundation, leaving the cartel more vulnerable than ever before. In the world of organized crime, where loyalty is just another currency, betrayal is inevitable. But for the Kinahans, these power struggles marked the beginning of a downfall that no amount of bloodshed could prevent. The Hutch-Kinahan feud stands as one of the bloodiest and most infamous gang wars in Ireland's history, a rivalry so vicious it has claimed dozens of lives and left a permanent scar on the streets of Dublin. But at its core lies a single act of betrayal, a moment that would ignite a chain reaction of violence, retribution, and destruction between two powerful criminal dynasties. The feud's origins can be traced back to a drug deal gone wrong, but the real spark came when trust was shattered between the Kinahans and the Hutch family. What began as a disagreement over money soon escalated into a full-blown war, with both sides seeking to outmaneuver and outgun the other. For the Kinahans, it was about dominance. For the Hutches, it was about reclaiming respect in a world ruled by blood and power. At the heart of the rivalry lies Jerry, the monk Hutch, a cunning and calculating figure who became the face of resistance against the Kinahan Empire. The monk's calm exterior belied a ruthless drive to protect his family's interests, and his ability to strike back against the Kinahans made him their most formidable enemy. The feud reached a boiling point with high-profile attacks like the Regency Hotel shooting, a calculated strike that deepened the chasm between the two gangs. For every blow dealt, another followed in retaliation, creating a cycle of violence that spiraled out of control. Innocent lives were lost in the crossfire, and entire communities were gripped by fear as the body count rose. But what really fuels this feud? Is it just about money, drugs, and power, or is there something deeper, a need for revenge, respect, and survival in a world where betrayal can cost you everything? The Hutch-Kinahan War is more than a battle for dominance. It's a chilling reminder of how far two families will go to protect their empires, no matter the cost. In the world of the Kinahan cartel, violence isn't just a tool, it's a language. And one of their most chilling tactics speaks louder than any other, targeting not just their enemies, but their enemies' families. This ruthless strategy is designed to send an unmistakable message to anyone who dares to oppose them. No one, not even the innocent, is beyond their reach. For the cartel, striking at families isn't about revenge alone. It's a calculated move to instill fear and ensure submission. A rival who might otherwise fight back is far less likely to act when their loved ones are at risk. By turning their brutality toward wives, parents, and children, the Kinahans create an atmosphere of terror that extends far beyond the criminal underworld. These attacks are methodical and often public, designed to leave a mark not just on their victims, but on entire communities. Homes are firebombed, families are driven into hiding, and lives are forever altered by the cartel's thirst for dominance. The psychological warfare this strategy unleashes is just as devastating as the physical violence, breaking spirits and silencing voices that might otherwise challenge their power. But such a strategy doesn't just breed fear, it also breeds enemies. By crossing the line into targeting families, the Kinahans have turned personal disputes into lifelong vendettas, with many grieving relatives now driven to seek their own forms of justice. In their bid to cement their control, the cartel's ruthless strategy may have sown the seeds of their eventual downfall. It's a stark reminder of the depths to which the Kinahan cartel will sink to protect their empire. In their world, there are no rules, no limits, and no safe havens, only power, fear, and blood. What makes the Kinahan cartel truly dangerous is not just their stranglehold on Ireland's underworld, but their expansive reach across the globe. This is not a localized crime syndicate. It is a transnational operation with tentacles in every corner of the world. From the sun-soaked coasts of Spain to the glittering skyscrapers of the United Arab Emirates, the Kinahan cartel has built a network that transcends borders, making them a global powerhouse of organized crime. Spain, with its strategic position as a gateway to Europe for South American drugs, became a key hub for the cartel's operations. In the luxurious enclaves of the Costa del Sol, where the wealthy and powerful mingle, the Kinahans established a base, using the region's sprawling coastline to smuggle vast quantities of cocaine and other illicit substances into Europe. This wasn't just about drugs, it was about creating a fortress, a safe haven far from the prying eyes of Irish authorities. But their ambitions didn't stop there. In recent years, the Kinahan name has surfaced in Dubai, a city synonymous with wealth and luxury. Reports suggest that high-ranking members of the cartel have used the UAE as a new operational base, exploiting its lack of extradition agreements with certain countries to evade law enforcement. Dubai's status as a global financial hub also provides opportunities for laundering the immense wealth generated by their illicit empire. Their network doesn't just smuggle drugs, it moves money, weapons, and influence across continents. Connections with South American cartels, European gangs, and even Middle Eastern networks have cemented the Kinahan cartel as a global threat. Their operations are sophisticated, their reach vast, and their ability to adapt unparalleled. For law enforcement, this global reach presents a daunting challenge. How do you dismantle an empire that operates in the shadows, crossing international jurisdictions and exploiting weaknesses in global systems? The Kinahan cartel isn't just Ireland's problem, it's a worldwide menace that demands a united front to bring them down. For years, law enforcement agencies across Ireland and beyond have been locked in a seemingly unwinnable battle against the Kinahan cartel. Despite their best efforts, the cartel remains an elusive and near impossible target, protected by a fortress of fear, corruption, and highly sophisticated operations. The Kinahans have mastered the art of evasion, staying several steps ahead of authorities at every turn. Their communications are encrypted, their money trails meticulously hidden through layers of shell companies, and their top leaders often operate from countries that offer protection through weak extradition laws. This level of organization makes it nearly impossible for law enforcement to penetrate their operations without risking leaks or tipping off the cartel. Corruption poses an even greater challenge. The Kinahan cartel's wealth allows them to bribe officials, insiders, and even some within the justice system. By exploiting vulnerabilities within law enforcement itself, they ensure critical information is suppressed or delayed, keeping their leaders shielded from justice. These tactics not only obstruct investigations, but also sow mistrust within the agencies tasked with taking them down. Fear is the cartel's most powerful weapon. Witnesses are silenced either through threats or outright violence, and communities often refuse to cooperate out of fear for their lives. For investigators, the lack of reliable testimony or willing informants creates a frustrating dead end. Even when breakthroughs are made, the cartel's reach ensures retaliation against anyone bold enough to challenge their authority. And yet, law enforcement has not given up. Collaborative efforts between Irish authorities, Europol, and international crime agencies have led to small victories. Seizures of drugs, arrests of mid-level operators, and the exposure of key financial channels. But the question remains, can they ever truly dismantle a cartel that thrives on secrecy, fear, and global connections? For now, the Kinahans remain a daunting adversary, a shadowy empire that continues to evade the full force of justice. It is a battle of patience, intelligence, and perseverance, a battle that may take years to win. If Christy Kinahan laid the foundation of the cartel, his son Daniel became its most recognizable figure. Charismatic and shrewd, Daniel Kinahan wasn't content to operate solely in the shadows like his father. Instead, he chose to step into the public eye, carefully crafting an image that masked the dark reality of his criminal empire. Daniel's rise to prominence came through an unexpected avenue: professional boxing. As a promoter, he positioned himself as a major player in the sport, forming alliances with some of the biggest names in boxing. His involvement raised eyebrows from the start, with many questioning how a figure linked to a notorious criminal cartel had become such a visible presence in one of the world's most high-profile sports. Boxing provided more than just prestige, it gave Daniel a facade of legitimacy. By embedding himself in the industry, he could claim respectability while allegedly using the sport as a front to launder the cartel's dirty money. Sponsorships, contracts, and event promotions offered the perfect cover to move millions through seemingly legitimate channels, further solidifying his position as a key figure in both crime and sport. However, this dual life couldn't remain hidden forever. Investigative journalists and law enforcement agencies began scrutinizing his role, uncovering links between his boxing operations and the cartel's illicit activities. Accusations surfaced that Daniel was using his influence in the sport not just for financial gain, but also to expand the cartel's reach into new territories. Despite mounting evidence and public outcry, Daniel has maintained his innocence, presenting himself as a misunderstood businessman. Yet his ties to the cartel remain undeniable. For many, Daniel Kinahan embodies the evolution of organized crime, a figure who operates at the crossroads of power, money, and public perception, blurring the lines between legitimate enterprise and criminal empire. His rise marked a new chapter for the Kinahan Cartel, one that extended their influence into worlds far beyond the streets, but also one that brought unprecedented scrutiny. As Daniel's name becomes increasingly synonymous with both success and suspicion, the question looms: will his visibility be the cartel's ultimate strength or its greatest vulnerability? Lurking in the shadows of the Kinahan cartel's violent empire are the men who carry out its darkest deeds, the assassins. These hired killers, profiled in the chilling book Kinahan Assassins, are the cartel's most dangerous and disposable tools. But who are these men and what drives them to kill? The book reveals a disturbing truth about these hitmen. They are often young, vulnerable, and easily manipulated. Many are recruited from impoverished backgrounds or criminal circles, lured by promises of wealth, status, and a way out of their struggles. For the cartel, these men are perfect soldiers, desperate enough to take any risk, expendable enough to be discarded once their job is done. But the lives of these assassins are far from glamorous. Operating under constant threat, they live in a world of paranoia where one mistake could mean their execution. They are tasked with carrying out the cartel's brutal orders, eliminating rivals, silencing witnesses, and sending violent messages to anyone who dares to defy the Kinahans. Each hit is a calculated move in the cartel's bloody chess game, and the assassins are merely pawns. Some of these men relish their roles, driven by greed or a thirst for power. Others, however, are trapped, unable to escape the cartel's grasp. The book uncovers harrowing stories of hitmen who tried to leave the life behind, only to be hunted down by the very organization they once served. Through wiretap evidence, first-hand accounts, and the voices of those who have encountered these killers, Kinahan Assassins exposes the grim realities of a life spent in the shadows. These assassins are not just killers, they are victims in their own way, used and discarded by a cartel that views them as nothing more than tools for its survival. Yet their actions leave a trail of destruction that cannot be ignored. They are the silent enforcers of the Kinahan Cartel's reign of terror, the ghosts behind the bloodshed that defines the organization. And as their stories come to light, they force us to confront a chilling question. How many more lives will be lost before the shadows they inhabit are finally exposed? Behind the brutal statistics and sensational headlines of the Kinahan cartel's reign lies a far more harrowing reality: the innocent lives shattered by their violence. These are the stories often buried beneath the weight of gang wars and criminal power plays. The bystanders caught in the crossfire, the families left to grieve in silence, and the communities forever scarred by fear. The cartel's thirst for dominance spares no one. In their pursuit of power, bullets don't always find their intended targets. A child walking home from school, a mother shopping at a market, or a father standing at his front door all have unknowingly stepped into the firing line of the cartel's relentless bloodshed. Each life lost is a devastating reminder of the collateral damage inflicted by organized crime. For the families of these victims, the pain is unimaginable. They live with the unbearable knowledge that their loved ones were taken not because of any wrongdoing, but simply because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. The aftermath is a lifetime of unanswered questions, unrelenting grief, and a justice system that often feels powerless to hold the culprits accountable. These stories rarely make the headlines for long. The names of innocent victims are overshadowed by the notoriety of the criminals who caused their deaths. But for the families left behind, the loss is a wound that never heals. They carry the weight of their pain in a world that often forgets them, their voices drowned out by the noise of ongoing violence. The human cost of the Kinahan cartel's reign is a tragedy that cannot be quantified. It's a stark reminder that the damage wrought by their actions extends far beyond their rivals and associates. Every life taken is a ripple in an ever-widening circle of pain, a testament to the devastating consequences of unchecked power and brutality. These victims may be forgotten by the world, but for their families, their memory is an unyielding call for justice. Every empire, no matter how powerful, faces its tipping point, a moment where the weight of its actions threatens to bring it crashing down. For the Kinahan cartel, this moment may finally be approaching. Decades of ruthless dominance, fueled by violence and fear, have put the cartel under intense scrutiny, but recent developments suggest that their seemingly untouchable status may be slipping. The release of Kinahan Assassins has opened a Pandora's box, exposing chilling details about the cartel's operations and the lives they've destroyed. For law enforcement, these revelations have added to a growing arsenal of evidence, including wiretaps and testimonies from whistleblowers. Each piece of new information tightens the noose around the cartel's operations, peeling back the layers of secrecy that have shielded them for so long. International law enforcement agencies are also ramping up their efforts. With the cartel's global reach stretching across continents, a coordinated response from Europol, Interpol, and other agencies is finally beginning to take shape. The once insurmountable fortress of the Kinahans is now being chipped away from all sides. But will these pressures be enough to dismantle one of the most sophisticated criminal organizations in modern history? Or will the cartel adapt, as they have so many times before, finding new ways to evade justice and retain their grip on power? These turning points are critical, but they also raise the stakes, forcing the cartel into a corner where their next move could be their most dangerous yet. As law enforcement continues its uphill battle against the Kinahan cartel, the question looms larger than ever. Can this criminal empire truly be stopped? For years, the cartel has operated with impunity, their influence spreading like a shadow across borders. But mounting evidence suggests that their days of unchecked power might finally be numbered. Wiretapped conversations have provided critical insight into their operations, exposing the intricate web of lies, violence, and financial manipulation that keeps the cartel running. These recordings have led to the arrests of mid-level operators and disrupted key drug shipments, striking at the cartel's lifeblood. combined with testimonies from whistleblowers, former insiders who risk everything to speak out, law enforcement is slowly unraveling the threads of the Kinahan network. Still, the challenges are immense. The cartel's global reach and sophisticated methods of evasion make them a moving target. Money laundering schemes span continents, high-ranking members operate from safe havens like Dubai, and fear continues to silence potential witnesses. Each breakthrough comes with the risk of retaliation as the cartel fights to protect what remains of their empire. Despite this, there is hope. International cooperation is at an all-time high, with agencies sharing intelligence and resources to corner the Kinahans on multiple fronts. Public outcry, fueled by exposés like Kinahan Assassins, has also increased pressure on governments to take decisive action. The fight is far from over, but the cracks in the cartel's foundation are undeniable. The Kinahans have weathered storms before, but this time the tide may be turning against them, whether through relentless law enforcement efforts or the weight of their own missteps. The Kinahan Empire faces the most significant threat to its existence yet. The question isn't if they'll fall, it's when. The Kinahan Cartel now stands at a crossroads, facing mounting pressure from every angle. Rival gangs are circling, eager to exploit any sign of weakness, while law enforcement continues to close in with unprecedented coordination. Even within the cartel itself, the once ironclad loyalty is crumbling as internal dissent and greed spark dangerous rifts. For years, the Kinahans have thrived on their ability to adapt and outmaneuver their enemies, but the walls are closing in. The relentless efforts of law enforcement, from wiretaps to international task forces, have exposed cracks in the cartel's armor. With their leaders under scrutiny and key operations disrupted, the question is no longer whether they can survive unscathed, it's how much longer they can hold on. Will the cartel collapse from within as internal betrayals and power struggles erode their foundation? Or will it take a global coalition of law enforcement agencies to finally dismantle this sprawling criminal empire? One thing is certain, the Kinahans are running out of places to hide. But even in the face of such overwhelming pressure, history has shown the resilience of organized crime. Can the Kinahan Cartel find a way to rebuild and adapt, or are we witnessing the beginning of their ultimate downfall? The next chapter in their story remains unwritten, but the stakes couldn't be higher for the cartel, for law enforcement, and for the countless lives hanging in the balance. As we piece together the story of the Kinahan Cartel, we're left with more questions than answers, questions that linger long after the headlines fade. What drives an organization to such extremes of violence, manipulation, and betrayal? Is it simply the pursuit of power, or something deeper, an unquenchable hunger for control at any cost? For the victims and their families, the most pressing question is whether justice can ever truly be served. Can the loss of innocent lives, the destruction of families, and the reign of terror inflicted by the cartel ever be atoned for? Or will the Kinahans, like so many criminal empires before them, find ways to evade the full weight of accountability? And finally, the most haunting question of all, will the Kinahan cartel's reign of terror ever truly end? Even if their leaders are brought to justice and their network dismantled, the scars they've left on communities and families will endure for generations. Will the downfall of the Kinahans be a turning point in the fight against organized crime, or just another chapter in an endless cycle of violence and power? These questions remind us that the story of the Kinahan Cartel isn't just about crime, it's about humanity. It's about the choices we make, the systems we create, and the cost of allowing fear and greed to flourish unchecked. And as we look ahead, we're left to wonder, what will it take to finally bring this dark legacy to an end?